part of my question anyway. But I was going to ask, there's been a lot of usage of this terminology, good and bad translation. So what is a bad translation? Who decides what's a bad translation? Or is it a kind of, because every translation is also a mediation, right, of the writers, of the translator's worldview and the translator's location in a particular locality, regional, whatever. So I was just wondering if we can maybe unpack that a little.
Sure, there's one answer to that. The answer is, if after reading the translation you think the original is good, then it's a good translation. And if after reading the translation you don't want to read the original, then it's a bad translation.
Yeah. Assuming that everybody gets to read the original.
I would say
you don't need the impression I'm talking about. Like Ramanujan's translations from Tamil have been criticized for being inaccurate, but you read them and you know that the original is first-rate poetry.
There are different days. I have always, as I said through that metaphor of a chi, I've always believed that all translations, of course, are approximations. There is no perfect translation, and therefore, to my understanding, a translation that approximates to what the author wanted to say and also capture the manner in which he or she said it is, to my mind, a good translation. I would put it in a very general kind of phrase. If a translator is able to capture what we may call as the authorial voice, which represents both his worldview as well as his manner of saying it, then I would consider that a good translation. And I don't know why we started talking of bad. Bad is a bad word for me. For me, in the world of translation, actually, the word that I would prefer is unacceptable. Acceptable and unacceptable. To me, a translation which is unacceptable is one that really goes far away. And I have had a running battle with some of these great poets and translators from India who use this license of creativity to play havoc with the original. One of them is an outstanding Malayalam poet, K. Sachidanandan, former secretary, and I've had big battle with him because he thinks that we think all translation is creative, and that is right. He takes a license of creativity to any extent that one point of time I told him, why don't you write a poem of your own? If you have to deviate so much from what the other guy is saying, write your own poem. On the same theme, 1,000 things have been said and said very competently, each one of them. So to me, an unacceptable translation would be one which really goes away, far away from that, both in terms of the worldview of the writer and the manner in which he or she said it. That's my take.
There's another aspect, I think maybe Girish, you can also enlighten us on that. Who do you write for? The idiom you use when you write into English. Is it the Indian English audience or the Western audience? And it does make a difference. There's a different idiom, the language we use. So maybe that's another thing that comes into relative good or bad translated. For one person it could be good, for another one.
My answer to that would be, you have no choice of idiom. I translate the idiom I know. The English I use is my English. I cannot say now I'll translate for Americans, therefore I'll use an American phrase.
Yes.
My idiom is, ultimately as Ramanujan says, you translate because you admire. It's one way of possession. If Ramanujan, who was my guru, used to say that you should not translate unless it makes you feel jealous. You should feel that I should have written it, therefore the original translation. Then of course you only use the idiom you have no choice. But how you relate to the original text is what's important. In what way? What you can translate and what you can't. Because even Robert Frost says that poetry is what gets left out of a translation.